Greetings, everyone. I'm Jess Arce, America's Dyslexia Expert, and I wanted to hop on and just show you the different math programs that we use because we get lots of questions about math. For years, I worked with my kids, my own kids, on math, and we used the different homeschool recommended programs for kids with dyslexia. However, none of them really seemed to be a good fit. Life of Fred kind of worked for my youngest son. He understood math better when I taught him that way than using other programs. However, he did not like the stories because he personally didn't like hearing a story about a 5-year-old who was a college professor. It just didn't make sense to him. I get that. Anyway, it wasn't until my second youngest son was preparing for the California high school proficiency exam, and he needed to do algebra again. He had worked on Saxon math, and he just really wasn't getting algebra. Algebra is really hard for people with dyslexia. So I purchased this. Well, I'm not going to show you that yet because I'm going to show you in the order what we use. But then I'll show you what program we purchased. So the first thing we do for tutoring, and I'm going to share my screen, we do this touch point math. So as you can see, there's red dots accompanied with each number. And so we have the students basically memorize the dots and where they are for each number. So we've got 1 dot for number 1, no dots for 0, 2 dots for 2, 2, 3 dots for 3, 2, 3, 4 for 4, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots for 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whatever order you want to do these groups in is up to you guys. Just make sure you continue the same direction every time so that your learner gets used to practicing in the same direction. So I usually do the body of 7 first and then ask the student to touch the dot on the nose after that. And for number 8, we usually just go across and then we go down to the next row and go across there. And for 9, we usually count down 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we go up to the Mickey Mouse 7, 8, 9. So I have them practice touching the dots that are already on the top line several times until they're comfortable with the placement of it, and before they start getting bored. And then we go down to the next line and they practice putting their dots and they say it as they put it. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Then once they're comfortable doing the dots there, then I will write out a problem on the next line and have them put the dots on that problem. And we keep doing this with the problems for a while until they are super, super comfortable with where the dots go and how the whole process works. So here we have 4 plus 3. So some students may not need to count the first group of numbers. We tell them to start with the larger number first. If they don't need to count it, they can just put 1 dot so they remember that they included it. But for this example, I'm going to count all the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then that's the answer, and they write it down at the bottom. And we continue to go through that until they have they become proficient with doing 1-digit numbers, then they do 2-digit numbers, then 3-digit numbers. Then we work in, then we change it to subtraction. I usually only use this program for addition and subtraction. Sometimes students will use it for multiplication, but not very frequently. So that's how we do the touch point math. And this was edited from a different math program that is out there that just is not perfect for the dyslexic learner. So that's why I have edited it in the way that I did. And well, that is not the right button. I cannot figure out how to stop my annotate. Stop share. There we go. So now the next thing we do when we're done with addition and subtraction is we come to the times tails stories. Now this is actually the original book. They no longer sell this large book and it doesn't look exactly the same. But we go through this with our students, and we actually have a training video that you can purchase that shows exactly how we do the program if you want. But basically we discuss the characters and the numbers associated with the characters, and then we read the story. And so the first story, I will read it to the student, and then we will read it together once, and then the student will read it to themselves 2 times. And that's how we do that. So it's like this. The 6th grade class played musical chairs for 24 hours. And I usually go around with my hand like this so they can see that the class is walking around the musical chairs. And so I go through the first half of the program in one 50-minute session. And then we stop there. So we stop before we go to part 2. Then I would have my students practice, and they say the story out loud that they have just learned, and then put the answer in the blank. So Mrs. Week caught 20 butterflies in her net and 1 landed on her head. So you put the number 21 right there. And so they're going to do that for this entire thing. And that's all I have them do the first day. Then the next day they come back, we review part 1, we start part 2 the same exact way, and then they review these problems from part 1 and from part 2. Then the next day we'll meet and they will review everything all over again, and I'll have them practice with actual numbers instead of the symbols. And so this book will come with your order. You would purchase this from Times Tales, and we will give you a link. If you don't mind ordering from our link, we'd appreciate it because we are an affiliate. And so it has lots of other activities you can have your learners do in between the times that you work with them, and just to reinforce everything and to help them remember. I personally would not stick my dyslexic learner in front of the video that they have provided for your average learner. I would do this process because dyslexic people need repetition, and they will learn it better by interacting with you than just watching a video. So that's something to keep in mind. Times Tales Company has also made this little trigger book, which is pretty cool. It gives you some terms to help you remember, like the horizontal line is like the horizon. And so they're just some nice little tricks to help making some of the names, terms, the math terms easier to remember. So that's the second thing we do. Then from Times Tales, we go into Learn Math Fast, and we use this program the rest of the time. And that's the program I was telling you that I just stumbled upon for my son, who was doing algebra, and it became our main curriculum for our math. And the book is meant for average learners, and so it is meant for an individual to read to themselves. But if your child needs help with reading, what we do with our students is we read this to our students. And then when it asks you to count money here, we actually put fake money out on the table and we have the kids count it. And if it's online tutoring, they use fake money online. So it becomes multi-sensory in that once you bring the manipulatives to life. And then there's some practice pages. You could use these practice pages with the touch math. I don't actually usually teach the addition and subtraction or the multiplication in this book to our students. I usually use the other two programs I showed you. However, sometimes learners don't do well with the other two programs, or they need some reinforcement. So we'll use this book. But we usually start in book one at the division portion. So that's about 3/4 of the way through the book. And then we start with division. So, we start with multiplication about halfway through the book. And that's where we pick up with this. So we start this book, the Learn Math Fast System, Volume 1, with it is the division, because the multiplication they've usually already learned. So we start with the division, and then at the end, there is measurements in the book. And this program goes all the way up to calculus. So by the time your learners in calculus, if they're still doing math, I'm sure they're going to be great readers, and they can be reading it to themselves by then. They send resources or tools to use with some of the higher level programs. They send that in the package. They're really reasonably priced too. And if you use the code LEARNER, you get 15% off your order. So she's also come out with these extra pages because she said parents were asking for more practice pages. So we've got lots of extras here that you can have your learner do as well. And if you have any questions, you can send us an email and ask, or you can contact the company, Learn Math Pass. They are so helpful and eager to answer any questions that you might have. So those are our 3 main tools that we use for math. And of course, there's lots of other resources that we'll talk about, but I just wanted to share with you guys what we use.